Well, I have 3 o'clock and I want to welcome those that have joined, and I know we'll probably have some more joining here in a little bit. I want to welcome everybody to this first of a series of Kansas agricultural equipment manufacturing and sales webinars. So I just want to welcome everybody and just reiterate that we're pleased that you've taken some time out of your afternoon to join us. We feel like we have a really great program today. We want to thank the folks that's helped put this together, and that's the Kansas Manufacturing Solutions, the Kansas State University Technology Development Institute, Great Plains Technology Manufacturing Cluster, and the Kansas Department of Agriculture. So I want to thank all those people for helping make this possible and joining us here today, and you'll hear from those folks a little bit later in the program. But just to reiterate the importance of the ag equipment industry in Kansas, we want to just make sure you understand that the ag equipment manufacturing sector in Kansas is a $4 billion industry to the Kansas economy. And it's the 37th largest industry in the state. So we feel it's pretty important to highlight that. And at this time, we want to bring on our folks that you're really here to see and hear from. We're very pleased to have Nicholas Bowles with SureFire Ag out of Atwood, Mike Bergmeyer with ShieldAg, and Daniel Rockholtz with Farmada. So we're going to start with some quick introductions from those folks, and we'll start with Nick at SureFire Ag.
Welcome, everyone. I'm Nicholas with SureFire. Like Russell was saying, I've worked at SureFire for about 14 years. I was the first employee many moons ago. SureFire's grown to about 85 employees, with most of those being up here in Atwood, Kansas. And when we talk rural, we talk Northwest Kansas, where there's about 1,000 people in our hometown. Most of those are at the SureFire Ag company. About 20 of those are at our electronics company that manufactures wiring harnesses for SureFire Ag. So welcome, everyone.
And then Mike Bergmeyer with ShieldAg. You want to introduce yourself, Mike?
Yeah, Mike Bergmeyer with ShieldAg. In Hutchinson, Kansas, we manufacture farm equipment replacement parts and new assemblies for conservation tillage, toolbars, planters, grain handling, as well as distributing several other lines of ag equipment.
Thank you, Mike. And before I introduce Daniel, I do want to remind everybody we are recording this and it will be available on our website afterwards. And everybody is muted at this point, but we will have time to ask questions live here after this section. And also Dana Ladner here in our office will be monitoring the chat. So if you have questions, throw them in the chat and we will get to those toward the end of the session. This time I'd like to bring on Daniel Rockholtz with Farmada, and I'll put up his presentation.
Thank you, Russell. Thank you, everyone, for coming. I greatly appreciate this opportunity to share with everyone what we've been doing in terms of cooperating with other manufacturers. I started Farmada in 2018, and we're based out of Salina, Kansas. And prior to Farmada, Farmada actually produces anhydrous ammonia toolbars. Next slide, please. So we manufacture fertilizer toolbars to put down liquid fertilizer, dry fertilizer, anhydrous fertilizer, or nitrogen stabilizers, or any combination thereof, in working widths from 30-foot all the way up to 65-foot working widths. And next slide, please. My background comes from Great Plains. I spent over 18 years at Great Plains Manufacturing, primarily in their international sector there, starting Great Plains off in multiple markets. And in 2006, we won the Kansas Governor's Export of the Year Award. And one of our machines that we helped develop that I was part of got the world record for highest yield in barley, so over 205 bushels of barley yield, what broke a 25-year record. So I have a history of working together, working to develop international markets. Next slide, please. So when I left Great Plains, this here is just a quick picture of Great Plains, Ukraine. Our office on the left was our first office we had, and our office on the right is the current headquarters of Great Plains, Ukraine. Next slide. Okay, great. When I started Farmada, I realized that I did not have the same team and the same company support that I had during my Great Plains years, the factory, the R&D capabilities, and the tooling and the various expertise. And so I had to figure out how to start a company and find good partners for this company. The idea came to me in 2017. I was at a farm show in Ukraine. It was organized by the Kansas government and the U.S. Commercial Service in Ukraine. They had a trade mission in Ukraine, and I was over there and sat with Mike Berkmeyer, whom I had met prior to that during my Great Plains days, when the service department was under me, and we were looking to find some solutions for some problems or some challenges. And while we were there in Ukraine, we realized that we really had some synergies going. I really appreciated the history Shield had and Mike Berkmeyer with their technology. And so I thought, man, I have a lot of experience designing farm machinery or toolbars that really meet and exceed customers' expectations. And that, by cooperating with Mike Berkmeyer, I could really take a leap forward and cut down on years of development that I would need otherwise if I had to develop these tools myself. At the same time, I also had a really strong prior relationship with Nicholas Bowles from SureFire Ag. SureFire Ag and Great Plains also had a very good partnership. And I saw that partnership begin and blossom. And it was really a great thing for Great Plains to have a company such as SureFire. And so I then quickly realized when I started Farmada that this would really make a great, for lack of a better word, trifecta, to really cooperate with other companies to develop a machine where each company has a specialty, and you rely on that company's specialty to develop the product, develop the market, and move forward. And we actually also cooperated to host international visitors. That was a couple of months ago. Next slide, please. We had some very high-level customers from Ukraine come. One of the biggest farm in Ukraine that farms over 1 million acres. They came along, as well as one of the most modern dairies, and we basically cooperated to host them for that visit and really introduce all three of our company's technologies. So, Farmada has been in business now since 2018, and it's been, we're really starting to take off now with our sales. And I really attribute this to our reliance on one another, or my reliance on the strong partnerships with Mike Berkmeyer of Shield and Nicholas Bowles of SureFire. I will let you gentlemen share some of your own experiences and talk a little. At this point, I think the next slide will show some of the SureFire stuff.
So when Daniel and Mike first got a hold of me, I knew this would fit right into what SureFire does. SureFire is not the type of company that's putting together a toolbar. We work with a lot of different equipment manufacturers, and I knew Daniel kind of had something special here, and so I for sure wanted to work with him and develop a package that would go together on his different anhydrous applicators that he has. We share engineering drawings back and forth. Daniel's engineering team and a couple guys here at SureFire have been trading those files back and forth to help develop brackets to hold all of the SureFire stuff on those toolbars. And SureFire can't sell anything if the customer doesn't have a toolbar, so it's a very good relationship to have with Daniel. This here on the side is just your normal anhydrous cooler. There's nothing too special there. There's some electronic components a little bit further back from that toolbar that allows them to monitor the anhydrous ammonia on each individual row. That's a product that the engineering team, the electrical engineering team here at SureFire developed from start to finish. They took some sensors that were in the industry and developed software to control, I should say control, to monitor that anhydrous on each individual row. And if anybody has experience on anhydrous, it's something very difficult to do, is to monitor anhydrous on a row-to-row basis. But that's something, an example of how we work together. On this side of the toolbar there is just our injection pump, something that our international customers talk about a lot is inhibitors or stabilizers for their nitrogen. That product that they're getting would go in that big tank that Daniel's team designed and installed on the front of that toolbar, and then our pump would pump that out and in with the anhydrous ammonia. Just work together to make sure that all the SureFire components and brackets and pumps, flow meters, all that stuff's going to work together to go on that Farmada toolbar. And he's got several different models, so that's something else that SureFire worked with Daniel's team to make sure that we could fit on the toolbar what we customers are wanting to do. And so it's been a good relationship, a very fruitful relationship for the three of us. Mike, you have anything to add on that?
We did the same thing. Just leave that slide up there. Everything that's painted black that hangs under that toolbar are things that we built, designed and built at Shield. We supply Daniel's group with solid models as well, so that it minimizes startup toolbar fit up problems. His engineers can slide a row unit right on where it needs to be and know if they've got a bracket in the way immediately and not have to wait till it gets down the shop floor. So we don't build toolbars, we don't build control systems. We build row units. Have been doing that for a long time. Actual Daniel's company and working with them allowed us to really upgrade some things we do as well for some of his extreme heavy duty commercial bars that he's wanting to provide to the field. That allowed us opportunity to stretch ourselves just a little bit. And I guess the main other thing I want to talk about just briefly is that this talk about collaboration is real. So we all got together and said, we can put together a complete drawn toolbar package ready to go to the field with almost all Kansas components in there, using all Kansas technology and products and services available. So no one had to really reinvent the wheel here to do this. We just all worked with the synergies that we all had in front of us. And my first Ag Summit years ago, that's what they charged us with. That's what the governor and the Secretary of Agriculture charged us with. Please leave this meeting several years ago and find someone in the state of Kansas you can collaborate with to develop some new products. We don't have to go outside. We all know, just briefly, how bad things are right now on a world logistics basis, with foreign supply chain disruptions and extremely high logistics costs and steel doubling in price and problem with labor. So now's the time to look internally and find that guy almost next door that has some capacity or has a valuable material or technology available. So the purpose of this meeting is sort of introduce that, and we have the people in attendance at this meeting can help facilitate that, because we had the ability to actually receive some trade mission dollars to help us develop those markets, those export markets. So it's not just a domestic market, which Daniel's making a good inroad into. It's those foreign markets that those people want our technology. They're great grain growers, but they're doing it with extremely old technology. There's immense room for growth in that market. And we have the right group of people in attendance today. We just got to see where it can take us. Russell?
Getting myself off mute there. Thank you guys for that quick overview. So some questions I kind of wanted to start with. Mike, you talked about that growth summit, and could you talk a little bit more about, because you've been there since the beginning with the growth summit and bringing that ag equipment sector together. Is this kind of what you envisioned? And for somebody in the audience that's listening in that may not think, well, I can't, I'm not ready to look at overseas markets. How is this going to help me in my, just selling to my next county next county over, or the next dealership over?
Well, that was part of what we tried to develop at the Ag Summit. I think we did develop the first Ag Summits. And that was just trying to get people to work together in those rooms with the whiteboards to write those things that are most important to our business. So we had ag manufacturing sectors at the Ag Summit, got the whiteboard out, had team leaders to talk about those things. Then Russell and his team would take that back to KDA and kind of help us develop an agenda for how we approach that business. And I won't just talk about export, because you're right. Most of what we can get is here in the United States, but the export business is important as well. And as long as, I guess I will talk a little bit about export, because as long as you can continue to do the basics of what you normally do well and take it overseas, it's a great thing. You don't have to reinvent the wheel for that.
Daniel or Nick, comments on follow-up from Mike?
I was going to add to that. What SureFire decided here, it's probably been 18 months to 2 years ago, we were going to focus on the international side of things with just a little bit of effort. They gave that, responsibility to me. I manage a group of 9 states here in the United States, as well as some international travel. And then COVID hit. So I haven't been able to go overseas, since November of 2019 is the last time that I went. I've had lots of Teams meetings. I do that regularly with customers in Eastern Europe, South Africa, and Russia. But I haven't been able to travel too much. That's something that's, starting to plan trips again, in those areas. But, Mike's right, being able to take what you're doing here all the time and selling a little bit of that overseas without making too many tweaks is, just really opens up the market for all of us.
I've always believed in the potential of the international markets ever since, I started in ag in '98. And so for me, making sure we understanding how we can benefit not just the export markets, but the U.S. market as well. For example, in Ukraine, the row spacing is 70 centimeter, and in America it's 30 inches, 76 centimeters, and so 27 point some inches versus 30 inches, and so the machines have to be adjusted and changed, and so I don't know. I was excited about the opportunity of trying to really do something here that we can grow internationally and domestically.
And Daniel, you've worked a lot of years in the international markets, and Nick and Mike, you've got experience in that exporting as well. So, and this whole trifecta, could you guys talk a little bit about what were some of the growing pains that you guys, when you first kind of got together and said, hey, we can work this out? What were some of those bigger hurdles that somebody just starting out of this really needs to think about?
Well, I don't really think there were a lot of weren't a lot of hurdles. There were a lot of upfront agreements we had to make on, okay, who should do these components? Who can do these things best? There were certain parts of my ground engaging equipment that I had Daniel source from another source, because I felt like the other source actually had a little bit more of, and it was another Kansas company, by the way, had a better economic advantage on that specific section that they're making. So we went in up front to try to not have hurdles, to understand up front what the barriers to success might be. So instead of hitting a wall, we kind of identified what those walls might be ahead of time. And I think Daniel was best at that, because he kind of kept us an agenda in front of us saying, this is what we need to do next, and then next, and then next. And that helped us, Nicholas and myself, kind of stay on pace. And there was another company right there in Salina that builds his toolbars for him, that builds the components for the actual orange paint and stuff. And we had those same kind of collaborative meetings with them, because they were actually a source for us as well. So it was a triad or triangle, like you said, but we also involved several other Kansas companies up front to make sure that we were all on the same exact page from the start. So in my view, there's been relatively very, very little problems with this development program.
I think for me, from my prior career, I try to do partnerships, and in general, American companies are very reluctant to work with another manufacturer company. If you're a manufacturer, really, you don't really want to reveal too much, and it's kind of every man for himself a little. And when working with the Europeans, I saw a lot of the collaboration between different manufacturers. I mean, you'll have all our main competitors, they'll go visit each other's factories. Like a couple times each year, they'll go visit each other and they'll give a tour of each other's factories and say, hey, look, this is how we solve this problem. This is how we solve that problem. And they have that high water raises all ships mentality. And so I think the biggest obstacle, not just for us, but I think for anyone on this panel or listening, is basically trust. I think you have to start and just admit that, hey, okay, look at your own company, look at your own strengths, and say, okay, this is our core strength, and these other areas, those are not our core strength, and it's fine, it's okay. Let's go find someone that has the strength in those other areas, and let's share what our weakness is here and see how they can complement our weakness. And so I think the biggest challenge is trust. And thankfully, I had a history with, I met Mike many times and watched him many times, even in my prior career, and so I knew that he what kind of person he was, and also the SureFire guys, we'd worked with them, so that made it easy for me to kind of take that step.
To add on to what both Mike and Daniel said, a challenge for SureFire early on when we were shipping internationally was the shipping paperwork. It just seems like that was something we were not expecting. When we were a 20-person company, that was daunting to get all of the contracts and shipping codes and all of that correct. We figured it out now, and now we worked with Daniel. Anything that we're shipping with his customers, they kind of just all goes together. Daniel's got a good team there, hired a good person to help him do the shipping paperwork. I just remember that being overwhelming to me when we first started selling internationally. It wasn't the how do I sell my products. That part comes easy to me as a salesman, but when you start talking about the loads of paperwork to ship something that I just have to put a UPS label on in the United States, it was something that was difficult for us to begin with.
So you guys have talked a little bit about that internationally and getting started, and especially we've received some calls in the office here from manufacturers saying, hey, I've got an order overseas, but I don't know where to go, how to get help to do that. So could you guys kind of touch about who out there, whether state agencies, private companies, who do you go to for that help or that guidance in terms of that international market?
Well, the SBA actually has some nice seminars on export paperwork, which isn't really that difficult to do. I've participated in those before. So Kansas Department of Commerce also has some of that information available on what basic paperwork you have to have: commercial invoice, packing slip. It's really about 5 things, harmonized tariff codes for everything, specific list of what's in the package, and then your Incoterms have to be right on the invoice and specifically agreed to by the customer. But that's not hard information to get. And I do know that the Kansas Department of Commerce, U.S. Department of Commerce, has documentation that you can just ask for. And we've actually helped develop some of that for small exporters that's really easy to get a hold of.
I think that part is, there's government help, but then when it comes to the company itself, the company has to be committed to, for example, the export. You have to, for example, if you look at my machines, and I see there's some manufacturers on here that have some pretty big machines too. You have to fit it into a 40-foot container, into a 20-foot container. So you assemble a machine in the United States. Now you got to, in the United States, how you deliver is different. How you package it, keep track of all the parts, make sure the salt water doesn't eat it up before it gets over there from all the salt air. It's all the salty air, and so there's a lot of there's a strong learning curve that is very intimidating to a lot of American companies. that, you know, the paperwork is actually the easy part. I think it's the getting your own systems in place to, you know, how to ship it so it doesn't move around, and you know, all that. That's a tricky part to learn that. And thankfully, my team and I, we had experience with that, and that made it easy for me to get back into the game, because I was able to start with very experienced people that knew what they were doing.
Yeah, all those things added together that Mike and Daniel talked about. We eventually just created a relationship with. In fact, I don't even know the name of the company off the top of my head. I'd have to ask the shipping manager. You know, early on, it was something I would have to be highly involved in. As SureFire's grown, they've put people in place to handle that side of things. But I remember creating a relationship with a freight forwarder, and you know, they taught us those things that they're talking about, filling out the right customs paperwork to get it to wherever you need to go. And it's a lot simpler process now than it was, you know, 5 or 6 years ago as a smaller ag company.
I think we've got some questions that have come in, so I'm going to ask Dana Ladner to pop back on here and field some questions. And again, don't be afraid to put some questions in the chat there, or when Dana's kind of done here with this little section, you can unmute, raise your hand, or whatever we can call on. Dana?
Great, thanks, Russ. A question came in, actually a couple questions did to me that were very similar. We've really jumped ahead in the relationship that the three of you have. Can we step back to the beginning? You know, how did you each learn about each other's companies? Mike, you talked a little bit about Growth Summit and the charge that you'd been given there, but how did you learn of each other? How did you meet each other? Did you get together over a cup of coffee somewhere? Did you do a Zoom meeting? You know, what were some of those first conversations like? So those that are on today and will be viewing in the future can maybe start those conversations. So step back to the beginning and let us know how it actually started.
Daniel, why don't you address that first?
Okay, so maybe I'll start with Mike Berkmeyer. So Great Plains, when I was at Great Plains, the last 6 years, I left in 2016 after the sale, but I was over the whole service department at Great Plains, and I was also we didn't really have official product managers, but I was kind of one of the product managers, sales managers / product managers, and so I saw what we were spending on R&D and engineering on knives for fertilizer, and we were trying to develop some widgets. And then I you know, had a lot of just spending a lot of engineering time and resources on one thing for months. And then I thought, man, this is crazy. I mean, you know, here we are, Great Plains, we make this wonderful machine, and a $25 part is a problem for us, you know, and it works great in 2 regions, but then the 3rd region, it doesn't work. And so I spoke to the different people, and they said, well, you know, what, some internal people, and they said, well, we don't understand, you know, well, have you talked to Mike Berkmeyer? I said, no. So I went and visited Mike Berkmeyer at Shield. I think that was 2012 or 2013. Mm-hmm. So that was the first time I met Mike. And then after that, I met Mike at the Ag Summit events. And then the last time where the dream actually happened, that was right here. June 8th, 2017. This was in Ukraine. So we both happened to go. I had already left Great Plains. I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do next, and I was basically doing market research, and went to the Kiev Farm Show, and Mike Berkmeyer was there, and some other people in this segment were there, and I had such a great time visiting with them, and they're such a good professional group of people that I felt, man, this really is a segment. It's an ag segment, and it's an area that I felt that, you know, I had a strength in, and that these guys had strengths in. So it made me, I actually got attracted to it because of the people that I was able to work with. And then it was automatic too that, well, I remembered my days with Nicholas, because Nicholas had worked with us as well. And I mean, he'd done many trainings for Great Plains International. We had we had international groups come in to Great Plains for Great Plains products, and we invited SureFire in to present. And so I knew him from those days. So that's kind of how I got connected to those two guys and those two companies. Did that answer
Nick
the
or Mike,
question?
you want to
Yeah.
add to that story at all, or other partnerships that you have formed? You know, how those conversations really get started at that first conversation.
It just seems like at farm shows, there's usually an afternoon or two where you're not as busy as you are in the morning, and that's when you talk to the other vendors. Since Farmada, and I've known Mike for before I knew Daniel, but you always go talk to the other vendors that ever since this relationship has come about over the last probably 2 years, for as long as SureFire has been involved, you're at a farm show and you spend a significant amount of time in Daniel's booth or in Mike's booth, just talking to them, talking about what the next product's going to be, any current opportunities or issues that are going on, and you just really forge a good, trusting relationship between all of them. And I really think that happens a lot at those slow afternoons at farm shows. That doesn't mean that Daniel and Mike and I don't trade texts. Mike's always sending me a text about the Chiefs or whoever that may be. So we have a relationship outside of work too. But it just seems like at farm shows is really when you can shake hands and talk to one another and go through a lot of those things. I always like those better than in Teams meetings. Not that those aren't good, but meeting in person and talking through and leaning on whatever piece of iron you're talking about is always a good opportunity.
I agree with all of that. I've really got nothing to add because it is a personal relationship you develop. The Ag Summit was good for us because as a small company, we could go to a place in Kansas, be a part and a presenter even for one of the seminars on ag manufacturing. And then you look to see who's around you in the room. Daniel was in the room. Look to see who's around you in the room that had an interest and then approached you about, hey, tell me more about what you do. So it's just those relationship building opportunities that come up, and Zooms are not those at all. They're just simply, we're presenting information. The day the Zooms end is a good day in my books. Okay, although we'll still use them because we found them to be valuable for training. You don't have to drive 1,000,000 miles and go train 6 guys. You can throw slides up there and everybody kind of understands what they're doing. But having that quick drink after work and rubbing elbows with people and understanding who their family and who their people are and how they react and where they live and those kind of things, and shared goals and shared values is a great part of building that relationship.
Well, that's great. Thank you very much, Russ. This is a really good segue with that as far as relationships and partnerships. Our friend Chris from the Department of Commerce dropped in to the chat that they have an entire division to assist with international trade assistance. We also have assistance from the Kansas Department of Agriculture with Suzanne Ryan Numerick that's there to help questions along the way as well. So Russ, I'll go ahead and turn it back to you for the next part.
Sounds good. I do want to kind of back up. I know Mike and Daniel and Nick have all made reference to the Ag Growth Summit. So if you're not familiar with that, each August we host the Kansas Agriculture Growth Summit, where we bring all the sectors, all 19 sectors of agriculture, and have a really deep dive discussion in each sector. So the ag equipment manufacturing and sales have their own meeting, and those people get to meet and talk and network is probably the biggest thing that I think all three of these guys would say is probably the most beneficial at the end of the day, is getting to talk to each other and meet and greet. So with that, we want to meet and greet a couple of organizations that are really instrumental in helping manufacturers of all sectors across the state of Kansas. And we're going to start with Kansas Manufacturing Solutions. So I'm going to ask Tiffany Stovall, the president CEO of KMS, to pop on here. And I believe, Tiffany, you have a little presentations to share, and you should be able to do that.
I do. Okay, give me just a second, and I am going to try to share my screen here. Can you guys see my screen yet?
Not yet. There it is.
Okay. And then if I do that, it should be in presentation mode.
You are good to go, Tiffany.
Okay, well, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Tiffany Stovall, CEO of Kansas Manufacturing Solutions. We are an organization that is actually part of a much larger network. We're affiliated with NIST MEP. So what is that? It's the National Institute of Standards and Technology, out of the part of the Manufacturing Extension Partnership. So it's an organization out of the US Department of Commerce. There's one of us in every state. We exist nationally to help grow manufacturing in the United States, to help keep manufacturers competitive, to help keep manufacturing in the United States, to help attract manufacturing back to the United States. And so in Kansas, that's our focus. We want to help keep Kansas manufacturers competitive, help them grow. The way that we do that is we go in and we're sitting with leadership. We're sitting with manufacturing leaders and starting with conversations, trying to really understand what the challenges are in your business. So I've heard some conversations about supply chain, getting supplies. Of course, we all are hearing conversations about people, attracting and retaining workforce. Sometimes the challenges are about increasing profits, growing sales, continuous improvement, lean, optimizing their business, strategy, all of those kinds of things. And so we start there. We start with conversations about what is it that you want to do in your business and how can we help you? And so then we put together a solution, or sometimes it's a set of solutions that we bring in our team to work with you shoulder to shoulder in your facility to help achieve the goals that you want to set together. So we're working with you. We're not just saying, hey, here's a list of people that you can call. We are working shoulder to shoulder with you on to achieve your goals. And so how do we know that it's working? Well, every project that we do, every engagement that we do, we have to survey our company, the companies that we work with. Now, nobody likes a survey. As a matter of fact, we all hate surveys. We get surveys in our inbox and we delete them. Well, because these are federal funds that we're working with, and it's the federal government, they require that every project that we do with a client, they are sending out a third-party survey that asks, how did we do as a result of the work done by KMS? How many new and retained sales, new and retained jobs? How many new investments did you make in your company? How many new savings? And so what you're seeing here are the results from last year during the pandemic. And so this is the kind of work that we're doing directly and with our partners as well. And so we're working across the state. We have offices across the state. We have staff across the state. We have partnerships across the state to make sure that we are able to touch manufacturers wherever you are. Of course, a lot of times it feels like the companies, and I heard you all mention, we're rural businesses, and it feels like a lot of times there's a lot of attention put on manufacturers in Wichita, right? Aerospace, we hear that all the time. Or there's a lot of attention put on manufacturers in the Kansas City region, but we're here to serve manufacturers all across the state, particularly the small to medium-sized manufacturers that don't have the engineers on staff or the internal SMEs that can, solve their own challenges. So I think this slide, even though nobody likes a survey, these impacts are really important because it shows the results of the work that we do. And it helps us with our legislators when we have to go to them and as a national network to validate the investment, right? Because then we use that investment on programs and services. So for instance, KMS Connect is a program where we're able to subsidize or partially subsidize programs for Kansas manufacturers that that are available at no cost to companies. So for instance, there are 9 programs that you can choose from. Some of our newest ones are succession planning. It says success on here, but there's succession planning. And for instance, automation as a workforce solution. Automation used to be a bad word, but now that we keep having this workforce solution, this workforce challenge, now companies want to talk about automation. And so we can come in and do a the first part of an automation discussion, but then connect you with our other partner that's on the phone here, with Jeff, so who you're gonna, I think, hear from in just a minute. So again, that's what we're able to do with this, is use the investment, is validate the investment through the surveys, use the investment to build programming, just like this KMS Connect that we can offer to you at little to no cost. One more program is Connects Kansas. So again, supply chain. We keep hearing about all of the supply chain issues. We learned a lot during the pandemic about what we did not know. We did not know who made hand sanitizer, not just in Kansas, but nationally. We had no idea where hand sanitizer was made, where ventilators were, where masks were, and I'm talking large scale. We just didn't know. And so we got caught with that. And so we all at the state levels and at the national levels have to do something about that. And so these databases aren't going to solve the supply chain issues, but they're a tool to help us start to address those issues. So with Connects Kansas, what this is about is it's a supply chain database for manufacturers in Kansas, where you can go on and register your business. You can find suppliers in Kansas and regionally as well to help build a local and regional supply chain. You can also be found by other manufacturers, by OEMs, by primes, and be able to respond to RFPs, RFQs, RFIs, and become integrated into other supply chains. And so it becomes a way to get new business. You can also, there's also a visualization tool within here so that you can see where your supply chain is, right? So that helps you assess your risk. This also connects into the national, there's a national manufacturers marketplace through NAM, the National Association of Manufacturers. This connects into that. So this is available to manufacturers at no cost. But if you were a part of this manufacturer's marketplace, you would have to pay $500 a year. Well, if you join this over the next, I think we have another few weeks, by November 15th, NAM has granted us the ability to give you access to the manufacturer's marketplace at no cost for life. So if you're going to do it, and you're going to do it anyway, you might as well do it before November 15th, before NAM takes that away with this free for life access. This last thing, FAME, I just wanted to mention it really quickly, these workforce challenges. We just started the first cohort of FAME. FAME is the Federation of Advanced Manufacturing Education. We started the first cohort in Kansas City, Kansas, with the thought that we will start cohorts across the state. It's 100% employer-led. It's a model that came out of Toyota. It's the first cohort in Kansas, actually the second cohort in the Midwest that we're following employers in terms of what they want, what they need, and putting together a scalable program that will train maintenance techs on a very short-term basis to provide the skilled workforce that they need. We're recruiting talent out of high school, and not just the kids that are left over because they're not college material, but we're actively recruiting them in the fall next to colleges and next to military as well. So anyway, just wanted to kind of let you guys know who we are, what we're doing, and that's it. If you have any questions, you can find us at our website. We are kms.com. We're here which is down in the corner. Jan Peters is on the call as well. And she's everywhere. Everybody knows Jan. And so she can also be reached for questions about KMS, and also with the Central Kansas Manufacturing Network, which is a great way to network with other manufacturers, just like what's happening here.
Thank you very much, Tiffany. A lot of great information there, and you hit on a lot of the topics that everyone on here is struggling with, and I think that workforce is probably one of the greatest ones. So with that, we're going to transition over to the Technology Development Institute, Kansas State University, and Mr. Jeff Tucker. So Jeff, the floor is yours.
Great, thank you, Russell. I appreciate it. I wanted to spend a little time just talking about two organizations that are helping with today's program. One of them is the organization I'm the executive director of. It's the Technology Development Institute here at K-State. Share a little bit about that, but also we are the host organization for the Great Plains Technology and Manufacturing Cluster, which is another partnership-based activity. So I want to share a little bit of information about both of these organizations. And so I identify TDI as a technology and talent development partner, because that's really what we are. We're an enabler to what people are trying to do within their organizations, and really work with companies and organizations of all sizes, an entrepreneur who has an idea to a small company who's trying to develop the next generation of technology, even to larger corporations. Sometimes we're acting as a skunk works. We have about 10 full-time staff, experienced innovators and engineers, designer types who are doing technology development every day. And really we're trying to advance both the technologies, the peoples, and the companies that we work with. And we do that with a variety of different levels. Sometimes it's at the technology level, sometimes it's at the cluster level, sometimes it's just about connecting to expertise. We are a part of the Kansas Department of Commerce's innovation growth programs. We also have some federal partners as well, and through the U.S. Department of Commerce, same organization that Tiffany was just talking about through the U.S. Department of Commerce. As an organization, if you look at TDI, we have sort of two areas of focus. One is on the technology development side of what we do. So we actually will do, everything from robotics integration to product design to prototyping and fabrication to custom equipment design. My staff are really experienced at being boundary spanners, jumping across a lot of industries. So we see, a lot of times we'll see technologies that are solutions in other industries for the problems that their clients and companies are having. And then the other side of what we do is sort of what we're talking about here today. It's really about trying to facilitate innovation, building networks, helping people see deeper into what the industries they're working with through the information that we have. So there's a variety of ways that we do that in terms of sort of what I would call the soft skills of things, that in terms of building networks and helping people to connect to opportunities. If you were to come to Manhattan, which is where our offices are located at, we're in a 22,000 square foot facility. About half of it is prototype and fabrication space. And we are in the process right now of retooling all of that. So fortunately, we've been able to receive some funding that's going to allow us to once again have some leading edge technologies, both in the additive manufacturing and metal fabrication capabilities. So we really try to be able to fit in and complement what our manufacturers, whether innovators, entrepreneurs, established companies are trying to do, and just sometimes be an extension of their in-house skill sets. We have a variety of networks that we work within that allow us to bring a lot of skills and resources to bear. The other organization I just want to briefly touch about is really it's really the focus of what today's discussion has been about. It's about finding these clusters of activity and the opportunity to build partnerships. I love the story that you guys have been able to share today. It's absolutely fantastic of how you found each other. And what we're trying to do is sort of help make that a little less serendipitous, and trying to create some opportunities where people can connect a little bit more purposefully. This is an initiative that we started about 2 years ago, and it really is about building out the manufacturing community across Kansas. But as you all know, that's pretty diverse. So we've decided to start focusing on some very specific industry clusters and industry focus areas. And And the partnership with KMS and the Department of Agriculture focused around ag equipment just seemed like such a great and ripe opportunity. And it surely seems like it from today's discussion. And it really is about trying to cultivate those small company collaborations and helping people to find and be found, and just sort of building innovation networks, ways to move ideas forward, where there's some very specific opportunities. So this is an organization that has about 180 members right now. It's a free-based membership. It's just a matter of going to the website and finding, getting logged in. There's a lot of benefits that come to you as a free member, but there's also, it's just really about trying to help people know what's going on a broader basis across the state in the manufacturing sector. We have a variety of resources that we connect with and through in terms of engineering and technology development, workforce development. As you can see, a lot of those type of things. And our partners are quite varied across the state and beyond. We aren't just servicing Kansas, we're actually beyond the state borders as well, but this is our home and this is where we first and focus on. So, one thing I would surely, invite is the opportunity to, right after this webinar, go to the Great Plains TMC.org website, learn a little bit more about us, become a member, join in. Courtney Swanson, our outreach coordinator, is the person that we connect through most directly. In addition to helping just build those connections, we are also developing programs similar to the way that Tiffany is trying to find those opportunities to outreach and engage. We work with a lot of small companies that don't have websites, and just trying to help them build their first website and get structured, helping them find access to information and data. We have a data scientist on board, Gina Becker, who's with us today, and she's also very engaged in helping look at sort of the trends of information in a variety of areas. We recently launched a technology portal trying to help people find access to technologies. And I believe I saw Jim Baxendale on today, who's also one of our partners in this area, and just accessing a variety of technologies and helping accelerate that search process. And then, because we all know we're focusing, challenged with our issues of workforce today, we're trying to look at it a couple different ways. In the process of launching some tools that'll help accelerate the employee recruiting process. And then some executive education specifically focused on the manufacturing sector. So, those are the type of things that we're trying to do as an organization to help cultivate the type of collaborations and create those spontaneous, collisions that you've sort of heard about today, and just try to find ways to accelerate that more broadly across the state. So I'm happy to be a part of this and look forward to helping this particular sector as much as we can, and just being a resource to all of you as we move forward. Thank you, Russell.
Thank you, Jeff. And at this time, I'll turn it to Dana Ladner. She's been monitoring the chat. Dana, do we have any questions at this time?
We do, as a matter of fact. Jeff, this goes out to you and your team that are on this afternoon with us. TDI, how do we find them? Those on the call, who do we let know about the great things that are going on so they can lead others to your organization? So that's my first question. With it, I'll let you guys answer, and then I've got a follow-up after that.
Sure. So, we're pretty easy to find in terms of the type of, if you just go looking for K-State Technology Development Institute, my contact information is jwtuck@ksu.edu. And we are always outreaching and happy to share the process that we do. And typically the way that we get started, Dana, is just having discussions similar to the way that Courtney, that Tiffany was talking about, starting with the conversation and figuring out what people are trying to accomplish. And we work with, again, the small companies as well as communities, as well as regions. It really is, I have quite a diverse and experienced team. And if we don't have that capability, we will find that capability and hook into it.
Great. Being that you're part of the university, do you guys employ undergraduate or graduate students to help with some of the projects that you have going on so they can gain experience as
We
well?
do. We are sort of that intersection of education, service, and research within the university as a land grant institution, and also economic development. Since 1995, we've had a continuous internship program where we've had over 700 interns go through the program since that time frame. COVID obviously hit us pretty hard because there weren't really any students on campus for a period of time, but we are sort of building that back and looking for those opportunities. The key is trying to find, we look at it as a way to try to help these small companies connect to Kansas talent that wants to stay in the state, that want to stay connected, and they don't feel like they have to go, to outside of the state to find an opportunity. And a lot of times these young people just don't know what's around them. They don't know what's across the state that they could be working at. They're sort of fed the big employers who come on campus and interview. So our goal is to try to help them see the opportunities to work with and for many small companies.
Well, great. I have one question, and then Russ, I'll turn it back to you. Jeff, you mentioned your free membership.
Yep.
To be part of this. Is everything free? A question came in, or are there fees once you get past the initial, please come to our website, let us know who you are. How does that work?
So good question. So the way that we work is we receive both federal and some state funds to provide pretty much a certain level of service. All the things in terms of finding information, connecting you to resources, that's all covered by the resources that we do. The only times that there's fees incurred from us is if you're actually starting to get into a very specific project where you're engaging our engineering staff and are developing a technology. That work is all done. It's actually a combination of, sometimes we have access to federal funds or state funds that will subsidize some of that work. It just sort of depends on when you reach out and connect us as to, do we have any pool of funds left or not? But it's all based on, sitting down with people, trying to understand what they're at, giving them a quote, figuring out, can we help them find some resources to move those ideas forward? So there's no cost incurred to anybody unless they are signing something that they understand what's being involved.
Well, great. Thank you very much with that. I appreciate everybody's time. The comments that were put in the chat, the networking has started now. So Russ, great job on getting folks together on this call. With that, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you, Dana. And thank you to all the presenters. We do have a few minutes left. I know we've had it scheduled for an hour. So at this time, I would ask if there's any questions from those that are viewing, if you feel free to unmute and ask any of the presenters, Jeff, Tiffany, Mike, Daniel, or Nick, any questions, any burning questions?
I have a question for Jeff. Jeff, does your team do also a weld fixture design and jig design?
We've done some of that in the past. It just depends on, again, what you're trying to do, but we're happy to have those conversations and we've done some robotic welding fixtures in the past and things like that as well. So yeah, we're happy to have those discussions.
Okay.
I do have a question for the three gentlemen since I'm unmuted. In addition to the products and the markets that you're looking at, have you found other ways to find synergy either around issues of workforce or shared, procurement or anything that's sort of getting beyond the products and the tech and the markets that you're sharing? Have you found any opportunities to share in different ways like that?
Well, I can tell you I've learned a lot from listening to Daniel and Mike, just in different things about business. I didn't have a lot of experience doing international stuff, and Daniel's been kind of a mentor for me. I don't know if I've ever told him that or not before, but he's taught me a lot. In fact, I think we were at Farm Progress, Daniel and these two young guys came to our booth, trying to sell us on their expertise in selling internationally, and Daniel started quizzing them, and it was kind of funny for those guys to be a little squeamish on answering questions that I knew Daniel knew the answers to before he was asking the questions. So I have learned a lot from Daniel and from Mike as well, but especially on the international sales from Daniel. So it's not just about product by itself, but also about the relationship and learning.
And Daniel and I have actually collaborated on some mutual sourcing of some of the components that we actually don't make at Shield, but are a part of our row unit to try to really establish the most cost-effective way of getting the highest quality component into that assembly. So we're already chasing some of those opportunities as well.
And there's also a collaboration on leads, I think, when leads come in from overseas or different countries, where we can, I might know who they are, their background, and I tell Mike, yeah, be careful. That'll be a temporary relationship, or that'll be a long-term relationship. If they're a copy paste type company, or if they're for real, and so I think we've all learned a lot from each other.
That's true.
Thank you.
But
Any other questions?
Speaks for trust. It definitely speaks for trust, because you got to trust the other individual that they're not going to use that information against you. You're going to share information, develop the relationships that are appropriate, avoid the ones that could be dangerous together,
Any other questions from the audience? Well, with that, I know that all of the presenters today are more than willing to field questions outside of this Zoom. So as a reminder, this Zoom is recorded and it will be available on our website. That's at agriculture.ks.gov. So be sure and check that out or refer other folks to it. And also kind of be on the lookout, because our plan is to kind of have a quarterly webinar just like this, and addressing some of the topics with small and medium-sized manufacturers specifically across the state of Kansas. So with that, I just want to give a wholehearted thank you to everyone out there. Thanks to KMS, TDI, Farmada, SureFire, and ShieldAg for your participation, and thank everybody for being on the call today. Have a great
Thanks for the
afternoon.
opportunity.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you
Russ.
very much.